Hey guys, so I know it's been forever since we did a video. Obviously, a lot's changed. So I was actually working on the Chevelle, and I didn't realize I was going to run into this problem. What we're doing is converting a steering wheel, so I wanted to upgrade to tilt steering. And I didn't realize all the components were going to be so difficult, and I don't know anything about all this stuff, so I had to do a lot of research, and I'm here to save you some time. Let's talk about it. So if you look at these first components, this is your standard steering column, right? The steering wheel goes on this end, right? And this shaft goes through the center, and steering wheel goes on this end. And this is where it bolts in. Now on this end, you have a joint that connects to the rest of your shaft that goes right next to your headers and everything else, and connects down to your steering gearbox via a rag joint. So right here you have your rag joint, and you have basically two places that pivot. You have a pivoting point right here, and you have a pivoting point back here, where this collar bolts to the steering column itself. All right. So now when you convert over, what I didn't know was, here is a new one. I got this from Speedway Motors, and what I didn't realize was this end. What they call this a double D is what they call it, and I guess it's because of the shape of the shaft itself. Now what you don't do is you don't cut this off here and stick this inside. You probably could, but there's an easier way to do this, and again, this is why I'm sharing the video. Now what I didn't know was, if you look at this column, there is literally nowhere to bolt this underneath your dash. So, you think you're getting a great deal for 300 bucks to have, tilt steering again. I mean, I was excited. But what you need is, first you need a mount. This is a Flaming River mount. They do have universal mounts you can buy for like 30 to 40 bucks. But this Flaming River one fits it. It's a 2-inch column, right? It secures on, uses your old bolt holes, and that part number is FR20114K. Hopefully you can see that. Okay, so this is an option for you. This is billet aluminum, and this is a 2-piece. So basically, you can take it, you can secure this in, put your steering column up where you want it, and use the Allen keys to tighten it in place. Once you have it adjusted where you want, you can use the set screw to tighten it down. Okay, so now we need to figure out how to get from this double D that's on the bottom of this column to that rag joint, right? You can't use any of this old stuff, so what you need to do is, I got a Borg Warner part here. You basically use, this is a universal joint, 3/4 double D to 1-inch double D, right? And the benefit of going to that 3/4 double D is, if you look how skinny this is, right? I have 2 1/8 inch headers on my on the Chevelle. Each tube's 2 1/8 inch header to a 3-inch or 3.5 inch collector. So I need all the space I can get. This 3/4 will work great. So basically, this has, again, set screws in it. You'll slide that end, the end of the column into it, and you'll slide this 3/4 inch double D into that joint. All right. So from there, you can order this in several lengths. This is a 2-foot stick. We're gonna have to cut it down. We're gonna have to clean it up. We're gonna have to paint it, and now at the other end, we need to be able to connect it to our steering gearbox. Now what you need to understand too is the steering gearbox, you need to look at your splines. So mine is a 36 spline, I believe. Your other option for a Chevy or GMC is 26. So it's either 36 or 26, and that may not be correct. You'd have to count your splines and see what gearbox you have. We actually have the Lars 972, I believe, a quick ratio gearbox. So this goes 3/4 inch double D to our steering gearbox, makes that connection for us. So basically you have 2 universals at each end, which is what we had from the factory, and that'll bolt to your steering gearbox. We'll go ahead and put it in. One of the benefits of the tilt steering is you can get a longer steering column if you want. I'm a tall guy and I'm going to put that seat pretty far back, so I'd like to have more steering wheel in my lap so I don't have to reach for the damn thing. So let's go ahead and get this in, and I'll walk you guys through it. So first thing we're doing when we get in the car is we're going to go ahead and remove that column. We're going to take apart where it bolts down there to the firewall. It's called the firewall plate. It clamps around the firewall, or it clamps around the steering column in 2 pieces, right? You'll see 2 bolts in there, and then the fastening screws. And then right here are your 2 bolts that holds the column in place. Those are bolted to the old one. So what we're going to do is we'll go ahead and throw this in. Make sure you have clearance access for your wiring, right? That's what the point in that is. We're just going to go ahead and secure this in place for the time being, loosely, because as you can see, you can slide it left and right. And then we'll put our firewall plate in and get everything secured there. We don't want to tighten everything down because we do want to be able to slide it in and out, right? So we can make those adjustments on the other side. So first, let's go ahead and get this in. Alright, so as you can see, I went ahead and bolted that in, and this is the bottom half of this Flaming River steering column support bracket. There's just 2 Allen wrenches that go in there, and again, this is billet aluminum. If you guys wanted to go ahead and paint all this stuff, you can. It'd probably look a lot better, but it's under the dash, and I'm not too worried about it. That firewall plate, though, there is a gasket. You can buy a gasket for that. It's about $10. I think Inline Tube actually sells that gasket. And yeah, let's go ahead and throw this steering column up. We'll just mock it in place and go ahead and set it on that firewall. And we're looking at the steering column here. This is the new one, again, that we're putting in. And this is the 1-inch double D. The Borgeson fitting, I think it's a Borgeson joint. Yeah, Borgeson fitting. This is the 1-inch to the 3/4. Now, if you look at this inside the joint, you'll see that there's tons of space in there. We can actually slide this on pretty far in and still have play. What we want to do is make sure that we're staying away from this knuckle if it was to rotate and touch. This knuckle as it rotates through the center of the pivot point. Now, reading the instructions, what they say to do is to tighten these down to put a divot, if you will, in these. And again, you want to be far enough out. Just moving it like this, I pushed it away from that 1-inch double D, you see? It slid right out. So we're not going to make that tight of a turn anyway, but we want to make sure that we got plenty of clearance. So I think I'm going to use that as my guide for distance, which happens to be right on the inside of the edge of this. So like I said, I just use this to push it away, and it looks like we're about flush on the end. And so we're going to go ahead and tighten these down just to score our big double D. And what they want you to do is get it marked, and you're going to drill through one of these walls. Not all the way through. I saw some videos where people put these all the way through the whole double D, but that's not what Borgeson's calling for. And in fact, I think some of these Flaming River and other brands actually have one hole already drilled out, a 3/8-inch hole. So I can see our mark right here and right here. For this one, I am going to put a little dimple in it, and then for this one I'm going to drill it all the way through. So that way when you clamp it down, it's actually clamping against this wall, and it's keeping it from trying to pull out or pull in, right? It obviously can't spin in there because of the shape of the double D. So we're going to do that. We're going to drill this, right? And what I also want to do is go ahead and take the the 2-foot stick that we got, the 3/4 double D. And I want to go ahead and mark this too, because I'm going to put little divots in it. So I'm going to divot each one. I'm going to score it, or not score it, press it down to make a mark on this and find out where I need to put divots in it. And again, that's just to keep it from sliding out. I'm not going to do a lot of drilling on this at all. And I'm going to just slide it in just enough to be flush with the inside of that as well. Now for this next one, where it connects to the rag joint, again, there's even more space on this one, it looks like. Yeah, because you're not going to make that much of a bend. So I think we'll use this end to adjust our play a little bit. I think we'll end up cutting this twice. I'll cut it a little long just to make sure that everything's good and adjust that steering wheel. So we'll go ahead and get this done. As you can see, I went ahead and put these divots in. Not much of a divot, just enough to let the bolt, you know, right in this hole. All I did, like I said, was mark them, and then I used a punch to make it center. Right, and I used the drill press. Now, on this 1-inch double D, again, I just made a little divot here, and I drilled all the way through like they told me to. Now it tells you to use a 3/8. I used 5/16. And I did that because if you take this apart, I'd rather have a smaller hole than a bigger one. I could always make this bigger. I imagine the reason they did that is because if you didn't get it perfectly center, it would still fit. But as you can see, that fits through 5/16. And I'd like as much of the material there as possible. So we just slide this on, couple everything together, and go ahead and put this one on our where the rag joint was on the steering gear. And again, make sure you have the right one. Now, when you set this, there's a flat spot on the steering gear. You want the this nut to be right over that flat spot so you can tighten it down. As you can see, we have the 3/4 inch double D rod here, and we have the steering column mounted in place underneath the dash. We have a firewall plate in just to make sure it's in the right spot. It's not tightened down all the way. This universal joint is tightened down all the way. It's secure, and what we need to do is mark this. So we're going to take a rough guess, as that's where it's going to go in the double D, or in the collar. And we want to make sure we don't cut off too much. Alright, so we're going to cut that, try and mock it back up, put it in place, and then if we have to cut it again or take whatever off, you'll see, because it'll hit down here in this universal. If it's bumping up against that, it's too much. So we do have an inch or so we can be off, so there's plenty of play. So let's cut that, let's see how it looks, and we'll go from there. As you can see, we got her in there, right? And you see that issue with the headers, it's close. But what I can do on the firewall is I can adjust that as far down to the left as possible and make some adjustment on the other side of the steering wheel. So on that firewall plate I can adjust it down and over. But we can go ahead and, we don't want to tighten this bottom one yet until I get that rod in a good place where I like it. But so once you have the steering wheel in place, right, it's all secured down. We haven't secured it yet, and we haven't put the rest of it together. Right, this is just a standard universal steering wheel. You need to make sure you rotate it lock to lock and find out what the middle is. Right? Don't worry about where your tires are at, because if you put this in like me, your tires might not be straight. So we turn the steering wheel all the way to the left till it locks, and then rotate to the right, count how many times it turns around, and then split it in half and turn it back. And then that's when we can go ahead and bolt the collar down and put the bolts in this. And then when you take it to get it aligned, they'll straighten the wheel and fix the tires. And that's it. Hope this helped you guys. We're another step closer to getting her on the road. So.